Tonight, Cummins hit with storms and flooding throughout the town. And the state government set to fast-track training for pharmacies to administer COVID-19 jabs.
From our 7 Spencer Gulf Studios, your nightly news with Ruby Kamain begins now.
Good evening. After last night's heavy rainfall, a series of floods have damaged streets and homes in Cummins. Emergency crews were on the scene earlier today, draining water from the roads and handing out sandbags. Our reporter Henry Millick has more from the town.
Behind me here is some of the damage caused by last night's rainfall. Emergency crews responded to calls around 8:30 this morning after homes became flooded. Residents left stranded in the town as roads were blocked off.
Today, at the top end of the town by the bunkers is flooded right down through to our showgrounds.
This hadn't happened to this extent since 1956 in the winter when a creek come down.
5 SES crews on the ground to assist. Authorities saying more resources are available if needed.
And if there's any other call for resources, then of course we'll respond to those.
Praising the efforts of volunteers on the front line for all their hard work.
The great thing about our volunteers is when the chips are down, they'll step up to the plate.
Cummins adding to the list of Eyre Peninsula and Spencer Gulf areas hit by the heavy rains.
With significant local road damage to a number of communities there. Kimber, Cleve, Franklin Harbour, Elliston, Streaky Bay, probably the most severely impacted areas.
But the SES says there may be more to come.
There's a deep tropical low which is pushing across the northwest coast of Australia through West Australia. With that will bring a lot of tropical moisture down, and we fully expect to see more rain in the pastoral areas over the weekend and into early next week.
If floods continue to persist, the SES are encouraging people to call their helpline on 132 500.
Meanwhile, Kimber's mayor is calling for emergency relief funding following the weekend's unprecedented rain event. Between 80 to 90% of the district has sustained major damage due to the flooding.
A natural disaster Kimber hasn't seen for a long time. Over the weekend, close to 200 millimetres of rain fell across the district, equivalent to a year's worth of rainfall.
Everyone's still pretty shocked and a little overwhelmed at the moment. But I guess there is an air of positivity as well. You know, this is good news overall for our farmers.
The resulting floods blocked off a number of key roads and freight routes, including the Eyre Highway from Iron Knob through to Kynecutter. Mayor Dean Johnson saying a large percentage of the district's roads have sustained flood damage.
We've sustained massive damage to probably 90% of our district, and over 80% of all of our roads have sustained major damage.
He's calling on the government to help the recovery effort through disaster funding, saying it's beyond the capacity of his council to undertake all the repairs.
It's way beyond the scope of our ratepayers to be able to pay for this. This will be millions of dollars over many, many years. We're still working through the process.
In a statement, Deputy Premier Dan Van Holst Pelican says the government admits the repair would be beyond council's capacity, but it will need to assess damage once it recedes. Mark Zita, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
COVID-19 made its way to Broken Hill late last year, sending the city into a 2-month lockdown. But as the region gets back on its feet, authorities have confirmed there have been 2 COVID-related deaths since then.
Omicron staking its claim in the Far West Local Health District.
90% of the cases currently are Omicron related. We're only seeing about 10% Delta related, so it's primarily a Omicron pandemic at this stage.
The numbers revealing Omicron variant has a more voracious appetite. At the peak of the Delta outbreaks, positive case numbers were at about 70,000. While Omicron cases are at around 770,000 as of December 1st.
You're looking at 1 to 10 ratio, and it does really underscore the infectiousness of this virus, and it's certainly borne out in the numbers that we're seeing even within our own region.
Significant delays in reporting, not giving accurate numbers in the district. A 7-day running total currently showing there is 164 active cases.
That the numbers are at the moment indicative. It gives us some idea of what we're managing.
In Broken Hill, 7-day accumulative reporting showing there are 90 positive cases through PCR testing. While the numbers are high, there have been no hospitalisations related to COVID. There have been 2 reported deaths in the region, a Broken Hill man in his 50s late last year. The most recent reported on Tuesday.
The latest deceased person was in her mid-80s and was a Broken Hill resident, yes, and she was in one of the aged care facilities.
Joshua Mercer, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Meanwhile, hundreds of pharmacy graduates and interns will have their vaccination administration training fast-tracked thanks to a new state government program. The move is welcomed by pharmacy groups, saying it will benefit regional and rural towns.
A shot in the arm for the vaccine program for pharmacies right across the Spencer Gulf. The South Australian Government fast-tracking administration training for up to 200 newly registered pharmacists and interns.
It's a fantastic announcement. It's a really positive way where pharmacists can contribute to vaccinating communities. So this is one way to reduce those barriers.
Training for the graduates and interns now subsidised by primary health networks. More than 1.2 million people across the state are now eligible for their booster shots. Pharmacies in regional and rural areas a key part in the race to get everyone vaccinated as quickly as possible.
We're now doing about 6,000 vaccinations a day in South Australia alone through community pharmacy.
In a statement, the Health Minister says they are ensuring pharmacies can continue to improve their vaccine programs and offer greater access to it. The PSA saying their training regime will be online to ensure every South Australian pharmacist can access it.
The pharmacists don't even have to travel, so we are doing all that we can to make this accessible for regional and remote pharmacists.
Mark Zeta, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, investigations continue into a fatal motorcycle crash in Port Pirie and concerns raised over structural issues at a Spencer Gulf hospital. Welcome back. A motorcycle rider has died last night in a crash in Port Pirie West. At around 6:30 p.m, emergency services were called to the terrace after a Honda motorbike collided with a fence. Police say a 22-year-old Derby Park man sustained serious injuries but sadly died at the scene. Major crash officers are now investigating the cause of the crash. The number of lives lost on South Australian roads this year is 3 compared to 7 this time last year. The Nursing and Midwifery Federation is concerned understaffing is plaguing regional hospitals across the Spencer Gulf, saying new nurses are being thrown in the deep end, resulting in burnout and widespread resignations.
A hospital system on life support. Healthcare staffing issues in the spotlight this week, with reports a graduate nurse was left to manage a COVID ward in the Port Augusta Hospital.
They are new and they need to be nurtured. That is in fact written into our enterprise bargaining agreement. So because it is a breach, we are taking them to the Industrial Relations Commission.
It is against all the basic standards to have a graduate nurse responsible for a whole ward. Yet that's what occurred here in Port Augusta.
As COVID continues to heavily impact the hospital, healthcare professionals are said to be stretched thin. The nursing union saying the facility saw 34 staff resign in the last 6 months, exacerbating the workload of those who remain.
People are feeling fatigued and burnt out. You need to make sure that people are being supported in their workplace, both the newer recruits, but also the more mature people as well.
Both Liberal and Labor parties have announced significant investment into regional recruitment this week.
Making it financially viable for them to work in. I think there'll be increasing attraction of living and working in regional South Australia.
But the Nursing Federation says action is needed now.
Pledges are good, but there are strategies and systems that need to be happening now.
Edward McCarroll, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Meanwhile, there are also growing concerns at the Port Pirie Hospital after allegations of structural issues were reported across several departments. The local member says he's asked SA Health multiple times for the recent structural report, but has been denied.
It's a place where you're meant to feel safe. Staff members from the Port Pirie Hospital however claiming they do not feel safe working in accident and emergency, radiology, or even the kitchens. Local member Jeff Brock requesting the structural report from SA Health, but is yet to get answers.
Let's get those structural reports, get them out into the public and make certain we're all at ease and we all have great confidence in the structure and the operation of our hospital here.
It is alleged the CT scan had to be rebalanced each day before its use. A spokesperson from the York and Northern Local Health Network says a structural report for the kitchen was done in 2018, which saw the roof get replaced. Also adding, another report was completed in 2020 on the foundations in A&E and the X-ray departments, where structural integrity work was done to restabilise the area. However, the public allegations were coming to Jeff Brock weeks ago, despite the works being completed.
And people have come to me, and this is the unfortunate thing about it. If people have got concerns and they're bringing it to the local member or to anybody outside the hospital, that's a grave concern.
The Allied Health building on Alexander Street is also facing its structural issues, with more than 60% of the building cordoned off due to safety issues. Christian Komenos, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. The tourism business outlook plummets to new lows. And 2 Port Pirie teenagers jointly crowned Young Citizen of the Year. Hello again. Over the last 6 months, South Australian tourism business outlooks have plummeted to an all-new low. A new survey showing businesses are struggling to cover their fixed costs and survive.
The tourism sector hanging on by the skin of their teeth. New data showing the South Australian tourism business outlook has sunk to the second lowest level since 2010. The state's peak tourism body saying more than 60% of businesses indicated that they were worried about their prospects for the next 12 months.
370 businesses completed our survey, and they told us that business conditions were extremely tough for the last quarter of last year.
Also saying the new Omicron strain of COVID-19 has caused lower consumer confidence, while restrictions have led to a decrease in business interaction.
From an economic perspective, we know that this is very crippling on many small businesses with having those density arrangements in place, and so that will be our highest priority.
The quicker the government can give industry certainty and open the economy back up and provide that confidence, the better it's going to be for all of those workers and all of those business owners.
TIC-SA says there is desperate need for industry assistance, particularly increased investment in marketing, demand stimulation and recovery grants.
We have seen business closures over the first 2 years of the pandemic, and unfortunately there will be additional business closures.
Edward McCarroll, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Port Pirie took a different approach to celebrate Australia Day this year by hosting a formal dinner last night for its award recipients. 2 teenagers took out the joint award for Young Citizen of the Year for their outstanding achievements and impact on the community.
A night celebrating Port Pirie's best. The Australia Day Council acknowledging the stars in the community who devote their time to volunteering. The Young Citizen of the Year going to 2 local teenagers. Ivy Walkup, the first gymnast in Port Pirie to be selected in the state team to compete at the National Championships while studying for Year 12 and working a part-time job.
I've had a little time off for graduating and getting into university and everything, but I plan to head back and help out the little ones this year.
While Aslan Everett has been involved in many musical productions and volunteers in the St Mark's College Holiday Program while also teaching hip-hop bounce for the last 3 years.
I'm studying a Bachelor of Psychology at the moment to then progress onto arts psychology, which is using like dance and drama and stuff like that to help people with their mental health.
Beth Keane took out the award for Citizen of the Year for her involvement with Uniting Church, Music Club and Port Football Club, and says a day without doing a good deed is a day wasted. Mayor Leon Stevens is urging more people to nominate the unsung heroes in the community for next year's awards. Christian Komenos, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The Port Lincoln Football League will see 4 clubs put forward a side to compete in a women's competition. It will be the first time in the league's history welcomed by major football figures.
Women's footy kicking goals in the Lower Eyre Peninsula. This year's Port Lincoln League set to host 4 women's sides, the first in its history.
So this is the first time that we're moving to a club-based comp. We've been running for a few years now with smaller teams, and yeah, it's an exciting step for women's footy for us in Port Lincoln.
The league is expanding the length of the competition, with clubs taking on an under-16 side and an open A's.
Our under-16s competition here at Centenary Oval and our open age competition at the high school oval, where we've been looking to grow that format.
Head coach of Boston's football club, Michael Payak, says that the team is raring to go.
After last night's training especially, I don't know how many text messages I got from the girls going, I'm getting bloody excited now. So yeah, it's been awesome to see the hype now.
The support from the local clubs getting the competition off the ground.
Since having more clubs involved with coaching and that, it's definitely progressed a lot quicker. I think this was always the vision, but yeah, there's a few people that have really put in the hard yards behind the scenes to get it to where it is now.
The competition will make its debut next Friday. Henry Millick, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us after the break. Our fishing experts will share their tips for the weekend, and we'll have all the weather details with Alex Sykes. Welcome back. Let's hope the humidity in some areas eases for a comfortable weekend of fishing. Here are our experts with their tips.
Welcome to another week around the Gulf fishing tips from Port Pirie. So yellowfin whiting should be going off the Richter scale at the moment. So any of the marks that you do know about wading off the beach or going through the end of a creek, have a crack for yellowfin whiting at this particular time. We're also seeing the blue swimmer crabs come up in numbers, and Australia Day was just absolutely beautiful when you see the number of people that were down the boat ramp and enjoying our waterway. So I think it was really good, and we're working very hard towards SA Health and getting an answer at the end of February in regards to lifting this ban we have on us. That's all we have this week. We'll see you next week.
G'day and welcome to another year of fishing tips from Port Augusta, Jewel the North. Well, very rainy start at the moment, so you can bet the silver whiting be in the shallows and around the creek mouths and that as well. That generally starts to turn on the salmon there as well around those creek mouths. Down around Chinaman's Creek, Port Patterson, further south down around Mambury Creek as well has been some reports. Crabs are just about everywhere as you'd expect this time of year. Really good catches of those. There are a couple of she-backs around, so don't take them. There's plenty of blueies around to not worry about the females. There have been some flathead caught from on the beaches along the front of the Chucks area. There has been some kingfish spotted up around the top of the Gulf and also Port Patterson, and if they're in those areas you can bet they'll be around the old powerhouse site. That's all we have from the Jewel of the North.
Hi, whalers fishing tips this week. Land-based across Whyalla, there's been some really good fishing done. The local foreshore holding some nice silver whiting, a few garfish early in the morning as well. There's been some nice large mullet amongst those too. From the local jetty, still plenty of undersized crabs. There's also been some nice tommies and garfish coming from the local jetty and a few silver whiting in the shallows at the base of the jetty as well. Across the Point Lowly, there's been some really good shark action off the rocks. Also around the local marina, there was a few small rat kingfish sighted around there as well. For the boaties, only a handful of crabs in most locations from Whyalla.
Well, we've had plenty of nice weather over the past week down here in Lincoln, so we've had lots of fishing reports coming through. Over the Coffin Bay side, within the bay there's been quite a few salmon trout, some garfish, small tommies and a few whiting, but most of the whiting will need to be measured. Back here in Port Lincoln, the tuna news has been a little bit quieter, but we do have some salmon still down on the south coast, and the blue crabs are on the improve with quite a few nice blueies caught over the past week. Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you again with more tips next week.
Time now to take a look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Alex Sykes.
Thanks, Ruby. And as mentioned earlier, heavy rain has led to flooding on the Eyre Peninsula. Several regions recorded the most rain they've ever had in a 24-hour period. There is currently a generalised flood warning for the Cooper Creek and a severe thunderstorm warning for the Riverland, parts of Flinders, as well as the upper and lower southeast and northeast pastoral districts. Now to a closer look at today's weather forecast now. At 3 p.m, Port Augusta was humid and 39. Port Lincoln was also humid but partly cloudy, 26. Clare was a humid top of 35. Looking further out across the region now, Whyalla and Cooper Pedy were both 37. Broken Hill was mostly sunny and 38. Adelaide was humid, partly cloudy and 32. Woodner partly cloudy and 30. Kadina and Cleve were both 31. Taking a look at the satellite image now, cloud bubbling over the southeast with a trough is causing some intense showers and storms. Scattered cloud over the north and west with another trough is bringing some showers and storms. Moving on to tomorrow's weather outlook now, and we'll start with the Gulf waters. Variable winds 10 knots, seas below 1 metre, and south to southwesterly swell also below 1 metre. Partly cloudy across most parts tomorrow. Port Lincoln is set to reach 25, Cleve 24, Woodna is set to reach a high of 28 degrees. While at 25, humid in Port Augusta, where it'll get to a top of 28, a degree cooler in Kadina, and it's set to reach 27 degrees there. Humid in Port Pirie with 29, Clare to reach 26, and Broken Hill will have a shower or two developing, set to reach a top of 36 degrees. Taking a look further through the week now, Port Augusta and Woodna both humid and partly cloudy with 31, possible shower in Broken Hill also 31, Port Lincoln set to reach 25, humid and a possible shower in Cooper Pedy with 33. To Sunday now, Port Pirie and Woodna both 34, humid in Port Augusta with 35, mostly sunny in Kadina 32, Wowler partly cloudy and 30 degrees. A look at the beginning of next week now, Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Broken Hill all set to reach 35, Wowler 31, Port Lincoln partly cloudy with 29, Woodna 34, and Cooper Pedy will be humid with a shower or two and 33 degrees. We're hoping everyone impacted by the floods stays safe tonight, and that's all the weather from me for now. See you soon with an update. It's back to you, Ruby.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Alex. And that's all local news this Thursday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later. Until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.